Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. My name is Paul Salter, and I'm a triple-digit golfer on a quest to become a scratch golfer. I'm also a high-performance mindset coach and credentialed hypnotherapist with 15 years of experience helping high performers from all walks of life get unstuck and unlock their full potential. Join me each week as I not only detail my journey, but make mastering the mental game of golf simple, tangible, and relatable so that you can overcome the mental hazards keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance. Hey, fellow golfer. Welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter, the golf hypnotherapist, and we have an outstanding, information-packed episode to share with you today. I have none other than Mr. Jon Sherman as the guest on today's show. Really excited to give you the opportunity to learn even more directly from Jon. I have an imagination that you are no stranger to Jon and his content. He's an author of the international best-selling Foundations of Golf series. He's the co-host of the Sweet Spot podcast, a PGA Tour coach, the owner of Practical Golf, but perhaps most importantly, and this is the way he will lead his own introduction, he is a golfer first. He is a golfer, a player, which allows him to provide such a unique perspective on every aspect of the mental, emotional, and technical aspect of the game. I know you're going to gain immense value from today's conversation, so we're going to jump right in. Without further ado, please help me welcome Jon Sherman to the show. Hey, Jon, thank you so much for joining me on the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Paul. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to our talk here.
Absolutely. And you are perhaps a man who needs no introduction in the golf space. However, I want you to take an opportunity, maybe insert humble brag here, but let's begin with building a foundation for our listeners. Who is Jon? What is your experience and relationship with the game of golf?
I'm a golfer. I always like to make that clear to people. I'm not a swing instructor. I just like to think of myself as a player coach. I've been obsessed with this game since I was 12 years old. I'm 41 now, so it's almost been 3 decades. And yeah, I've had my ups and downs in the game. And about 10 years ago, I had the idea to just start writing about golf from a player's perspective. I thought that the golf swing had been covered, and that was more than well covered at that point. So why don't I explore some different topics that I felt have helped me become a happier and better golfer, whether that's practice, expectation management, picking smarter targets, and talking about all the crazy stuff that goes through our head on a golf course. So yeah, I've been doing that for the last decade. Wrote a lot on my website, turned that into a book, The 4 Foundations of Golf. We have a podcast, and I love, mainly I love helping golfers of all levels just be happier and have a better relationship with the game, and of course lower their scores. And I just try and do that kind of with my own philosophy and spin on things.
Well, I'll be the first to say you do that very well. And something that resonated with me once I first came across your content was how much you place a priority on enjoyment, having fun. You and I both know golf is such an interesting game. We start playing for maybe the challenge, the camaraderie, but at the core of it is the fun. And in a matter of milliseconds, that fun can quickly turn into amplified frustration. So I'm curious, as you've navigated your journey and helped so many others, what mistakes or pitfalls are avid golfers making that are robbing them of that initial joy they once sought in the game?
I mean, there's a million of them. I think one of the main one is mismanaged scoring expectations. I was just writing another newsletter this morning, kind of a chapter from my book, where I was reminding people that, no matter how good we get at this game, we have a range of scoring outcomes. Even PGA Tour players, they can shoot 15 strokes differential within 24 hours. So no matter how good you get at this game, there's this wide gap between your best and your worst. And I think most golfers go out there, and I did for a long time, judging themselves or the day as success and fun if they only shoot on the lower end of that range. And unfortunately, there's a reason why those are low probability events. So I'm trying to rationalize this with people. If you go out there expecting or only satisfied with a low probability event, then you're going to set yourself up for 85% of the time not being happy with it. So we have to figure out different ways to enjoy the game. I, of course, want people to shoot low scores and have fun doing that, but we also have to figure out other ways to enjoy the act of being out there and what we really want out of the game and have a healthy relationship with golf. And that's hard to do. I try and find different ways to connect with people on that.
I love what you said. Like, it's almost like we need to bring an intention to golf that allows us to find fulfillment and enjoyment completely independent of the score we shoot that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you can relate. I know earlier, as I started playing again earlier this year, if I had a bad day, which there were very many at my early beginnings, I was a wreck to be around following rest of the day rather. So just being able to find fun regardless of your score. And I'm curious, what have you found most impactful for either yourself or your clients that allows them to still find a piece of joy every time they go out there, regardless of the score?
Well, I think it's just what you said, what your intentions and priorities are. So I'll give you an example of my own game where I really had to put this to test a few days ago. So we had our club championship. I've won it the last 2 years, and I was going for the three-peat this year. Yeah. And I was playing against, we have a lot of great players at my club, and match play, anything could happen. So we have playing with a great guy. He's a friend. I just start off horribly. I lose the first 4 holes and, just didn't have my A game. And I kind of stuck with it and wasn't giving up and still enjoying the match and fought back. And we got to later on in the match, I was 1 down with 3 or 4 holes to go. And we shared this really nice moment. I just sank a 25-footer for birdie to go now 1 down. And the last 3 holes at my golf club are very exciting. Anything can happen. We had a bunch of people watching us. And my buddy and I, who were adversaries that day, he looks at me and I look at him. I'm like, here we go. This is going to be fun. And I didn't win the match. I had a lot of expectations on me and myself, other people. And yeah, that wasn't fun, but we hung out afterwards. We talked about the round. I spent some time with his family. And so another version of me would have walked out of there in disgust. So I had to challenge myself to say, I put myself out there. I put my game on the line. There's a lot of pressure. There's vanity, all these people watching. And I tried to derive enjoyment out of that, even though I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't win.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great reflection of just showing up with intention for the process. And you did a great job describing that's the moment you're working towards the entire playing season and off season is that club championship. This particularly, you're going for the three-peat. To be down by 1 with 3 holes left. I mean, what's better than that? It's like the little boy dreaming of, bottom of the 9th, the bases are loaded, you're down by 3. That's the pinnacle. And the fact that you were able to cultivate a moment of presence, to acknowledge like this is going to be so much fun despite the pressure, the butterflies. I mean, that is a beautiful skill you've cultivated over the years.
Yeah. And I play a lot competitively. So I try and take solace in the amount of reps and opportunities and realizing that one situation can't define it. So that's probably one of 20-ish competitive rounds I'll play all year. So I try not to place like so much importance on one event because that makes it harder for me to do what I've trained to do. So I try and look at things on a longer time horizon. I think that's just a good thing in life and everyone kind of knows that, but I have to remind myself of that. So yeah, it didn't happen that day. It's happened for me other days. And no matter what, again, if I go knowing myself, if I veer off into the side of me that's super competitive and only about results, then yeah, I'll come away from that day. Not to say I'm not upset about it. Of course I wanted to win, but it would have ruined my whole week. It's a few days later, I'm okay. I've gotten past it. I'll be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the theme of our conversation so far has been this incongruency between expectations and reality. And I'm always quick to say it's that gap between expectation and reality that invites in frustration, anger, disappointment, regret, whatever it may be. What do you specifically work on either in your journey with your clients to help better set tempered expectations so there isn't as big of a gap between expectation and reality?
Well, I think you need to be very truthful with your physical abilities in this game. So in my 20s, I didn't get to play or practice much. And that was when I was most unhappy, because I would go out expecting to perform the same way when I did practice and play a lot. And I just wasn't as good anymore. And I remember one time I had this, I've probably recounted this so many times, I'm not going to go over it, but I had a kind of dreadful moment on the golf course. And I realized, I'm like, you're not prepared or good enough to get angry at yourself for not playing well. And that was an important realization in my golf game. So I try and have people, whether it's sharing statistics on what are good golf shots for different levels, understanding how scoring occurs, understanding, as we talked about, the volatility of scoring that never goes away, no matter how good you get at this game. So we need to be honest with ourselves, with our physical abilities, our experience and comfort on the golf course. If you're only playing 5-10 times a year, I don't think that's enough to go out there saying, like, I'm good enough to lower my handicap. I think some people can get away with that if they're kind of athletic freaks, but for the most of part, you just have to be honest with what you're putting into this game and what's going to come back out at you. And that's, I think, as you said, that delta between what is and what people think is the core reason why a lot of people get frustrated and angry at this game. They're just not honest with themselves.
I love that. And you're throwing in the word delta. Now you're speaking my love language. This is good stuff here. So one quote that comes to mind, and I'm going to completely butcher it, but you brought it up when you were speaking, was like, there's a quote that says, like, don't be mad about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. And I know I'm probably butchering that, but you're right. Like, we have to take an honest step back. Like, if I have an expectation of breaking 90, 80, shooting scratch, and I'm playing 4 times a year, there's a massive incongruency there. So I love how you really approach that through the lens of just being honest with yourself. What is a reasonable expectation based on your bandwidth of work, time, and commitment to the game?
Yeah, I think, for the golfer who, I think playing once a week, a few times a month, and being able to practice once a week, just so you can create that feedback loop between the golf course and the range, working on stuff that you're noticing in your rounds. I'm a big proponent of, reviewing your rounds and gathering that feedback, whether it was mental stuff, decision-making, impact conditions that you need to work on. So yeah, you need to be playing enough and practicing enough to make these adjustments. And I can't undersell how important it is to get comfortable on the golf course with all the distractions, whether it's your playing partners, your scoring expectations, the types of shots you're hitting. I always remind people that, like, in order to get better at golf, you need to be playing enough golf. You can't simulate the experience of golf well enough on a practice range. You need to be going through it. So that experience that I went through this past weekend, I've been through a lot of club championships. I've been through a lot of moments like that in USGA events and big tournaments where I didn't get what I wanted. So I've experienced losing, I've experienced winning, and it doesn't faze me as much anymore because I've been through it so many times. Now, if that was the first time that happened to me, I would have been devastated and couldn't move past it. So it's a long way of saying that experience is so crucial in this game, because golf's kind of a bizarre activity with all the things that can take place on the course. And you just have to be accepting and prepared for all of that.
Absolutely. So one point I wanted to dig in with you brought it up, is like really spending time adequately reflecting after a round. And before we go there, I'm curious, if Jon is keeping his own manual scorecard for a moment, aside from tracking the obvious during a round, fairways, greens in regulation, putts, OBs, penalties, what else should our listener really pay attention to tracking, either from the technical, mental, or emotional aspect during a round to set them up for a productive review after?
Yeah, I think you could easily break the round into a few separate categories. So in terms of Ball striking, if you listen to our podcast, The Sweet Spot, we always talk about the big three. I'm looking for how is my impact on most shots? How is my turf interaction? And how is my face control? Meaning, was I hitting a lot of shots to the right or the left? So I'm looking for patterns or clues like, oh, maybe I was thinning my wedges or I was chunking my irons or pulling my driver. So I'm looking for something that made me uncomfortable from an impact perspective and gauging whether or not is that a pattern that's been happening for multiple rounds or is that a one-off thing? And if so, then maybe I need to spend some time practicing to kind of fine tune this again. So that would be one thing to look at. Another would be decision making. Was I disciplined with my framework of selecting targets off the tee with approach shots or even wedge shots? Did I choose a wrong club, not judge the wind correctly, not factor in the elevation change? Did I go through that process too quickly? So reviewing decision making from a strategic perspective. You can absolutely go back and ask the questions. Did I have fun? How was my attitude? How was my engagement level? Was I pushing too hard on results? Was I not engaged enough? So I have all these different things that I'm thinking about, and my intentions, I'm judging myself on my intentions that I have for every round, which is honestly have fun, make good decisions, stay engaged, have a good time with my playing partners, be grateful I'm out there. And if I could check off all those boxes, then I think I've had a good day. And then the score is what it is, obviously. And I look a little bit deeper on the ball striking stuff to see if, that could be altered or changed in the future. So yeah, there's a lot of things to go through. I don't think everyone needs to go through that entire list, but those are just some ideas.
Yeah, and maybe if I had to distill it down, I'll reflect back what stood out to me is pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And in addition to the glaring, this mistake, or I had that emotional blow up or hang up here, but pattern recognition, I really like that. And I'm curious, are you an advocate for mid-round note taking in some capacity, a voice note to your notes app on your scorecard? What's that look like for you?
I don't. I think the way my brain works is it's a bit of a filing cabinet. So I file things away. I try and imprint things, if I have a good moment or something on the opposite end of the spectrum happened, I'm trying to kind of mentally imprint it. So yeah, I do try and take the 5 to 10 minutes after every round to kind of mentally review most of the shots. Some people might be better at journaling and writing that down. As you mentioned, if you want to take a voice note on the course or some type of note on your scorecard, I think that's fine as well. I'm just in my own game. I'm so conditioned to do this that I really don't. I have a very good memory for these things, so I don't forget them, and I review it right afterwards. So that's easier for me to do. But for others, it might make sense for them to write these things down as they occur. To each their own on this, I think.
Absolutely. And I've always been of the mindset that what needs to be brought to your attention will be there after the round. That glaring pattern of, pushing the ball right every shot, you're not going to forget a pattern 60, 90, 120 minutes later. It's going to stand out to you. So you can trust that you can remain focused in the moment addressing that next shot. Yeah,
I think I've referred to it as what stuck out like a sore thumb to you, I guess, using that phrase, is that what were the big things that when you thought back to the round, you're like, oh, wow, I really lost my temper on the 7th tee. Was that because I was frustrated about missing putts on the last 3 holes? Was that because that hole has been giving me problems? So you're asking, you can never get too good at asking yourself good questions and try and hopefully come up with a rational answer afterwards when you've calmed down.
Absolutely. So let's now transition. It is post round. What are some of the key questions, aside from just looking at stats and comparing what stands out there? What are some of the key questions you're asking yourself, you're encouraging some of your players to really prioritize reflecting on, to learn the most and bring that forth into either practice or the following round?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I mentioned earlier, and just ask yourself, could I have done anything differently? Because a lot of things in golf are outside of our control. So could I have, let's take, for example, strategic thought. I play in windy conditions. Sometimes you make the right decision and you get a poor result. The wind can shift in the middle of your swing. It might have been a headwind, and then all of a sudden it died down, and then the club you chose and the target you chose in the air ended up being unfortunately wrong. I can't change that. So there's no there's no benefit to me to get angry over something that I didn't have control over. Now, on the flip side, if I thought back to the most moments of pressure in certain rounds and tournaments I've played, I've noticed when you get nervous, you speed up and you go too quickly through your decision-making process. So sometimes I'll look back and I'd say, you know what? I think you could have slowed down there, and that might have been the reason why you struggled down the stretch. Sometimes you don't know for sure. There's a lot of unknowns in this game. But again, looking for the patterns and what sticks out like a sore thumb, I'm trying to delineate the difference between, was there something I could have done differently that was within my control? Or, maybe I just had an off day. Like the other day in my club championship, I felt very uncomfortable. My swing didn't feel right. I don't know if there's anything I could have done about that. It just kind of is what it is sometimes. So I'm not beating myself up for that. I'm looking more towards, again, what could I have done differently that would have affected the outcome? And in that day, I'm not sure I could have done anything differently. And that's why I'm kind of at peace with it.
I was going to say that same word. That creates a sense of peace. If you're focused on your process and all that you can control, that's a beautiful day. That can be a win, a source of enjoyment.
Yeah, I think this is all stuff that, I think that the work that I'm doing and the work that you do and plenty of other coaches, it's convincing people to do things that they know are the right things to do. We all know the difference of hanging your intent on things within your control, not in your control. Humans have been saying this for thousands of years. It's just really hard to do. And it's really hard to clarify what that is in your head. And that's why these review processes are so important, because a lot of golfers, they just let the information disappear, or worse, they harp on only the negatives and beat themselves up, and they don't take credit. That's another part of the process I forgot to mention. It's now occurring to me, is that, can you go through the joyful moments of the round, the good shots you hit, the nice moments you maybe had with your friends? Can you imprint that in your memory bank rather than saying, man, I missed that 8-footer for par on the 17th hole, and that's all I'm going to take away from this round? So yeah, that's very powerful in creating like your identity as a golfer and your enjoyment level, what you choose to remember and focus on, and ask yourself good questions on, or not beat yourself up for. These are all ways we grow as a golfer, and obviously with other activities in our life as well.
Absolutely. I think it was Tony Robbins who said the quality of your life, and in our case, we'll say quality of your golf game, is dependent upon the quality of questions you ask. And I think that's really important, because that gains or gives us insight into what's going on. Like you keep mentioning, golf is very simple, straightforward, logical. We set an intention and we align our actions. But as human beings, we are emotional beings. And I think one of the underlying benefits of what you've just shared is this review process allows you to start diffusing some of these big emotions. I often find personally and in my coaching that when we don't understand why a pattern keeps happening, that's what invites in more frustration, more anger, more impatience. It's through some of this thoughtful, reflective work after a round that you can begin to connect the dots, align effective action steps to overcome an obstacle, make a subtle yet significant tweak in your game. And that alleviates any doubt and uncertainty, as well as the frustration and anger that may be there.
Yeah, we could solve a lot with calm, rational thought. Again, when we're off the course and we've had some time to let the emotion pass, because it is an emotional game for various reasons. So yeah, easy to say now, but hard to actually go through. That's the difficult part about, golf advice and information, is that it's easy to digest. Someone's listening to this in their car and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's going to be great. And then you actually go through it and you're like, man, that wasn't as hard. And that's why I try and remind people that, nothing is an all, no concept is all or nothing in golf. You can get a little bit better at something and it'll have a meaningful impact on your game. And that could be just being more accepting and forgiving of yourself on the course. That was a huge unlock for me, because I just got sick of beating myself up and losing my temper. It wasn't very fun, and it wasn't fun for the people who played with me either. So I'm not perfect at that now, but I'm definitely better at it, 10, 15 years later.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, like John underscores a really important point. You make so much progress on the course, on the range, on the putting green, of course, but there are so many opportunities to do work away from and off the course as well that are just as, if not equally or more valuable when it comes to complementing the progress you're seeking in your scoring, in your game. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious, something that's really stood out to me as I've become more familiar with you is just your process and priority of staying engaged, finding that grit, that persistence during a frustrating round. Just this other weekend, I went triple, double, triple. And there was a moment where I had to choose as I came to a fork in the road, do I just throw in the towel or do I really mentally regroup, reset? How are you finding the most effective approach to regrouping in a round, to remaining committed so you don't throw away 4, 6, 8 additional strokes because you've given up in the middle of a round?
Yeah, I think, again, experience is important here. I think for the novice intermediate player, these moments are more earth-shattering to them when they make, a blow-up hole. And they still do kind of kick me in the stomach. This year, I would say my tournament performance hasn't been as sharp this year. I've had a few tournaments where I made big mistakes early. I had 2 tournaments this year where I made a triple bogey earlier in the round. And the only way I could get through that was, again, kind of letting the emotion happen. My head's spinning, my palms are sweating. I'm getting all those thoughts like, man, and I have some weird thoughts now because I'm the one giving this advice. I'm like, man, you're a fraud. You're telling other people to get through this. So there's just like added level of, I don't know what the word would be, but difficulty I'm dealing with as someone who's kind of been public about these things. And then I'm just saying to myself, you can deal with this after the round, but right now, let's just see what happens if you stick with the plan and go through everything you've committed to. And that's as simple as taking my time before every shot to go through my routine, pick my targets, and just stick with it and see what happens. Versus the other side of it would be, I can let this linger. I could beat myself up for the next 6 holes. I could ruminate on this. And I would say I've hung my hat on coming back from these things. I'm all of those days I mentioned, and even this weekend when I was 4 down through 4 holes. I didn't throw it in. I'm like, man, let's just see what happens here. And that's been powerful for me. And another thing that also has resonated with me is that I try and just talk to myself and rationalize with myself that, sometimes you need to take a big step backwards, being like, no matter what happens here, things are going to be okay. I'm going to go home. I think about my wife and kids, like won't care that much in either direction what happened out there. I told my son when he finally realized I had the match the other day, he's like, did you win? Are you going to be the club champion? I'm like, no, I didn't. And he was like, okay, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal to him. You have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is everyone needs to figure out a way to create these perspective shifts in the moment, or at least near the moment. And you kind of have to experiment with what resonates with you. So some people, it might be an entirely different line of thinking, but that's what helps me get through it.
Yeah, I love that. Like your response is just rooted in like passion and acceptance. Like, okay, this happened. Yes. And where am I going next? And it's actually, I love the way you framed it, because literally just this week, I heard something on a podcast. I think I was listening to a comedy podcast, and it's the whole stand-up framework of yes and my mind started going like, this is so applicable to passion and acceptance on the golf course. Like, yes, I just hit the ball out of bounds, and I'm going to hit a good shot after, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to trust my process, my swing. I think that's a wonderful framework that really encapsulates the great feedback you just had there. Is like, you just have to accept where you're at and trust like your process and preparation are there to serve you. And maybe you haven't executed as well as you wanted. There's still an opportunity ahead of you.
Yeah. And also, listen, sometimes it just doesn't work out also. Yeah. Sometimes you could do all of the right things, have the right intentions, and this game shovels back at you. And those are the days where I mentioned like that scoring distribution earlier. That's when you're on the higher end of your range. And my challenge to myself is, how can I make that worst score less worse?
Yeah.
So that I think is one of the unlocks that people don't want to go through to lower their handicaps, is turning that 95 into an 88, because those strokes go quickly when you throw in the towel. They go much faster than you could save them when you're playing well. So if people can shift that perspective and saying like, you know what, I'm struggling today, I'm not feeling it, but I still have an opportunity to stick with it and potentially save strokes and accept that challenge, this new mini challenge, that's great.
Yeah.
And then listen, if you threw in the towel and you know, some people like to drink on the course and they had a couple of beers and they just listen to music with their buddies, that's okay too. I don't care. Like if that's what you want to get out of the game and you're like, you know what, I'm not digging in today, I had a rough week at work and I'm just going to relax and enjoy myself. If you're at peace with that, that's fine too. I try and offer a more regimented version of golf to people, but I always give that caveat, you know, enjoy the experience on your terms. It doesn't have to be this super serious endeavor.
Yeah. It comes back to intention again. I love that. You're right. You can be there just to have fun.
Yeah. What do you want out of this?
Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point. I love how you said, like, you basically, these are my words, not quite yours. Like, you have to grind to make those worse scores less worse. And
yeah, it's hard.
And what comes to mind for me is that concept of the inchworm. You know, if we think of the inchworm, it's front foot moving forward, lower scores, lower scores. It takes a lot of effort, time, and energy for the back feet of that inchworm to finally move forward. And in this case, that the back feet, the hind, they're not legs, whatever they are, little critter antenna things. That is your worst score section. It's the bottom of that bell curve. And that is where you really have to dig in. And it is more of an emotional and mental toolkit that's going to allow you to move that forward in the right direction.
Yeah. And one thing I would say to people who are serious about becoming better is that one thing I've noticed when I've really hung my hat on this idea of grit and perseverance and not giving up is that, when you can think about things in a longer term view, which is hard to do when you're in the moment on the golf course, but I think of it in a tournament perspective for me is that I know that if I make it a habit of checking out when things are hard, that makes it easier for me to do it in the next 5 rounds. So in the context of, when I play under pressure and I have cuts to make or qualifiers, it might be clear to me that my chance has gone that day to get what I wanted. Like, I'm not going to qualify for this tournament, but I still have 8 holes left. If I give up and check out on these 8 holes, that will not serve me well in the next one or 15 ones down the road. So this is, again, it gets back to concepts like, habits and decision-making and having a long-term view on things. Again, all stuff that we know is the right answers in life, whether you're looking to, be healthier financially or with food decisions. But these are things that you have to have clear intentions on so that I know when I tee off, like, that's my intention. That is what I'm going to judge myself by when I'm done with the round. And I have just felt that, with what I want out of the game, I want to perform at a high level. That's what I need to hold myself accountable to.
So well said. That grit, that persistence is a habit. It's a transferable skill too. Like you mentioned, in the next 5 rounds, it becomes easier to give up. The same applies in life. That tough business decision, that tough conversation with your significant other or your children. Are you going to start ducking those challenging conversations because you're defaulting to this new habit of choosing easy? And I'm curious, I think it's a beautiful segue here. Like, you and I both are in such agreement that golf is just a beautiful, powerful personal development tool. Golf is a wonderful mirror of our shortcomings and opportunities away from the course too. And I'm curious, in the last 10 years of playing for you, what has the game of golf helped you strengthen or solidify as kind of this umbrella personal development skill that served you away from the course?
Yeah, I think, all of the greatest hits of life. I think patience has been a huge one. It just kind of being able to, I think a lot of golfers get drawn to the game because they're kind of control freaks and they love results and numbers and competing. And what I found in golf is, like, the harder you squeeze, the harder the game squeezes back at you. And that's definitely a life thing too, where we just have to let go of certain things, whether that's in my business, relationships, trying to change people, all those things that pop up in life where you're like, man, you deceive yourself into having more control over the situation than you do. And that's hard. I mean, I've got 2 kids. I think it shows up in parenting a lot. think I wouldn't say I'm a parenting expert, but I've just, when I think about our parenting style and people I'm around, is that it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking that I have control over the outcome of my son or daughter's life based on like what I'm telling them and doing. And that I need to, do everything I can to make sure that they're going to turn out a certain way. And I've just found that sometimes has the opposite effect. So there's certain situations where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to have to let the situation play out and let them deal with it and not get involved. That's hard to do. I don't think I always get it right, but I could definitely draw a path to a situation on the golf course that's quite similar.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that I already look forward to reading one of your future books, The Foundations of Parenting, what the game of golf has taught me about being a better dad.
I don't think I would ever have the audacity to write that book. I think I'm going to stick to golf.
No, we appreciate you in the golf field too. And I'm curious, I loved a thread taking place on Twitter that you initiated, talking about, you use a lot of analogies in the health and fitness space in golf. And, as a dietitian in my former life, that speaks volumes to me and my expertise. So one post that really caught my attention are, what are the fruits and vegetables of your golf game? And I never saw your answer. I saw 1,000,001 different answers. Like, how would you answer that question?
I think it's, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, like, for example, we know that sticking to a process and forgiving yourself and staying in the moment and all these, cliches and whatever you want to call them, we all know they're the right things to do. Like we know that it's pretty indisputable that there's certain, although I shouldn't say that because I load up Instagram and see people eating a stick of butter. I think we have decent knowledge on what a healthy diet is, and that would include whole foods like fruits and vegetables. I'll try and keep it as generic as possible. So yeah, there's certain things in the golf world where, I'm telling people stuff that they know already. Like, when you practice, I don't want you to rifle through the bucket mindlessly. I want you to pick a target, absorb feedback on every shot. I want you to do different styles of practice. And everyone's like, oh yeah, of course. But actually doing it is another thing. So intellectually, these things aren't hard to understand. They're just hard to do. Like me writing the book, man, I quit like 3 separate times. I don't know if you could see it in the video, but there's a outline of my book on my office wall behind me. And I put that up there as a reminder to myself, because I made that outline probably in 2018 or 19. I got super excited to write the book, and I worked on it for 6 months. And then I just got exhausted. I'm like, I can't do this. This is too hard. And that outline sat in my office for 18 months, just sitting there, because I lost that habit. I lost the determination. And you know what got me out of it? One day they say like getting started is the hardest part. And it's true. I was just like, I'm going to start writing this thing, and I'm just going to like X off. I had this, one of those habit trackers on my desk. Yep. And I'm just going to like do that Jerry Seinfeld, don't break the chain thing that I read in James Clear book on habits, just saying like, I'm going to write every morning and exit off. And I feel like if I keep this up for a certain amount of time, I'll have something here. And I did. I got off track there. I think I lost my train of thought, but that to me is an example of eating your fruits and vegetables. And you could do that in golf too, whether it's, again, taking a few seconds to consider your target, elevation change, wind, rather than just stepping up and hitting it, or having that post-round process of reviewing what occurred. That's eating your fruits and vegetables. So it's kind of like these basic things that are hiding in plain sight, but you're hanging your hat on them and you're making them important to you. And when you do boring things well over a long period of time, sometimes we get good results. And more importantly, you feel better about yourself. I think that's the most important thing, is like you feel productive and you feel good about yourself. And I just have to admit to this, like I weave in and out of this in my own personal life, like being super regimented with stuff and then getting lazy with it. And as much as I try and help others do the same, like it's still hard for me. I'm really good at it with golf, but I think outside of golf, I'm still figuring a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah, and I appreciate the vulnerability there. You are a human being, and that's okay. Like I think it's so beautiful when you can have that vulnerability, and it's like, because all of us know what to do. And if we don't, like, let's be frank, Google will give us 50,000 answers in a millisecond. Yeah. It's simple, but simple is not the same as easy.
Information isn't the issue anymore.
Yeah, it's a mindset problem. It's a habit problem, discipline. And I think really the theme and the undercurrent of our conversation comes back to like, we know the fundamentals. And if you don't, Jon is an outstanding resource to go learn them. And after that, there's equal parts patience, acceptance, positivity, enjoyment, commitment. And that is kind of the collective of emotions and practices that will guide you in your progress and your journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if there's a better way to like be satisfied and feel good about yourself, like I'd love to hear it. Because everyone keeps kind of converging on the same stuff through many generations, and I think we're fine tuning it a bit more. But I don't know what other way to like feel better about yourself and productive in any endeavor that you're taking up. And golf is, as we said, like in terms of it mirroring life, it's the ultimate test of all of these things, I think.
Yeah, totally in agreement there. Now I'm curious. Well, I'm reading a quote off my other monitor here. I loved what you said. It says, this is a quote from you: incremental progress is the key to golf. You don't cure or eliminate problems or mistakes. Those words set you up for disappointment. Your goal is to make them happen less often. And we kind of alluded to it. It's not an all or nothing game. Like, expand upon for us, like what that means to you, and what does the listener really need to take away from that sentiment?
So I'll be a little cynical here for a second, but I think the golf industry, how it markets itself, like many other industries, like the health industry, personal finance, quick wins, quick fixes sell very well. So from an early age, I've been inundated with marketing from the OEMs and training aid companies and golf ball companies, all saying the same thing. We can fix your slice. We can give you the extra 20 yards. We can lower your scores if you buy this and take this shortcut. And I would say, yeah, it's potentially possible, but unlikely. And that permeates itself throughout the golf world in various formats. Go on YouTube and search for swing tips. Fix your slice forever with this 5-minute video. And I'm not saying their information's bad. I just think it's setting you up for a reality that doesn't exist. So if you took the classic slicer and wanted to fix that or make it happen less often, is the term that I prefer, is that, you're not going to stop slicing. Like, I used to have a problem hooking the ball. I still hook it from time to time. It didn't go away. I've just reduced the extremity of it and made it happen less often, so that when it still happens, I'm not shocked or like taken back. Yeah. I'm just saying, okay, that was part of my pattern, and I'm doing my best to mitigate that and make it happen less often. So yeah, I think golf sets you up, whether you're on the practice range and you like figured something out in your swing and you're like, oh, I got it now, I'm never going to play poorly again. Or you had a few great rounds.
Guilty.
Exactly. We all are. And sometimes the game feels easier and you're like, man, I got it. And then, 2 days later, you just get this horrible slice of humble pie. So I'd rather people think about it in terms of incremental progress, because that is this, again, in terms of everything else in life, this game is a really magnified version of that, where you can do all the right things and go backwards for a while. And you have to understand that that's part of it. And then you all of a sudden see this like crazy spike and it goes down again. So it's this, series of breakthroughs and setbacks. But along the way, when you average them out, they're mostly incremental. And it's hard to do that. I had a great quote, I think it was from Morgan Housel. It was in my book, where he kind of saying like, setbacks happen, something about on the spot, I can't think about it. It's kind of sad, but just in terms of like progress, like setbacks happen so quickly and they're right in your face. Whereas like the progress is more of like hidden in the weeds over time. It's harder to see.
Yeah. He wrote The Psychology of Money, right?
Yeah. He wrote The Psychology of Money. Yeah. And some other great stuff. He's one of my favorite writers.
Yeah, he's a very good writer. And that reminds me too, we're just throwing out a handful of quotes here this morning. Like, the setback is really the setup for the new opportunity, the setup for the moment of growth that's just around the corner, if you're willing to be patient and open-minded to finding the learning lesson you need to get to that next level.
Yeah, if you let it, golf can take you to some really dark places. And it's happened to me, for sure. And yeah, the only way out of it is some type of perspective shift. So, I had one friend who had, we could use more quotes. There is no losing, only learning, like some version of that. And yeah, I think when you're truthful about what you want out of the game and how you're going to get it, it's easier to like look at all these things and saying, man, I just had a stinker of a round today. What did I notice from that? What questions can I ask myself? And again, if someone else has a better way to get out of it, I'm all ears, because again, the path of least resistance is only letting the results dictate how you feel about yourself. And that's a very tricky game to play. If you ride momentum up and feel good about yourself when you're playing well, then naturally you're going to ride it down when you're not playing well. And I'm trying to get the best of both worlds. I really do want people to enjoy those moments where they hit great tee shots or sink a putt or post a really good score. I want them to enjoy that and have fun with it. But at the same time, when the flip side of that shows up, and it will, what tools do you have at your disposal to deal with that? So I'm trying to like absorb the upside and limit the downside. I'm sure there's a stock trading reference in there that we could use, an options trading strategy. But that's kind of how I view the game, is like taking ownership and loving and enjoying these great moments, and then figuring out ways to deal with all the other stuff that golf's going to throw your way.
I love that. And I think too, it's just a perspective of like, what is this, if I'm going to use the generic term, this negative moment, this learning lesson, what can I learn? It comes back to acceptance, and just curiosity is a big word I like to come back to, especially in my own game, being earlier in my playing career right now. I use career like I'm a professional. I like that. But it's just curiosity. Like, okay, why did this happen? What do I have to learn from it? And that, for me, I have found helps to diffuse some of that emotional charge, so I can quickly turn down the volume of my emotional brain, turn up the logic, the inquisition, and just get curious about what I can take and move forward with from that round.
Yeah, and also, you also have to give yourself permission to let the human side of you out.
I like that.
I don't want to, it's hard because sometimes when you go down this path, I feel like some people will like suppress their emotions and interpret this as being kind of like a robot. And I don't really want that either. So there's always a balance here. It's like, I want you to, again, feel excited when good things are occurring. And if, you hit that tee shot out of bounds, like, yeah, if your stomach sinks and you have an outburst or something like that, that's okay too. Again, if it becomes excessive and it's starting to wreck your enjoyment of the game, like then it's like, all right, potentially we have a problem here that I need to address. But at the same time, like, you can't expect to play this game. It's an emotional game. You can't expect to play it and not have your human side come out quite a bit. You're just learning ways to find what's the optimal engagement level for your personality. Some people are, a little bit quieter and more stoic on the golf course. Others are more talkative. And you see this at the highest levels of golf on the professional tours. There's different personalities out there, and they thrive on acting in certain ways. And I think that is absolutely the case for the recreational golfer as well. Like, you need to figure out what version of your personality should show up on the course. And for me, like, I think by nature, I'm quite an emotional person, and I let the emotion get out of control for a long time. Okay. And I needed to go back a bit on it. Not that I'm not emotional anymore, but I realized like it was just too much, and I couldn't handle the roller coaster I was putting myself on.
Yeah, you need to remain in the driver's seat, not the frustration, the disappointment. They can be in the back seat, but you've got to be driving that car.
Yeah, as best I can. As best I can.
It's interesting. I'm so happy you brought that up, because I had in my notes here like the words equanimity, robotic, and then from Bo Watson and Shannon Shusky, they use like caveman golf. See target, see ball, hit. You just do that, in an ideal world, 72 times or less. Most of us maybe 80 or 90 times, but at its core, like, golf can be that simple, but it robs you of the human experience, which is so emotionally charged, because we are emotional beings. So I loved your perspective, just like figuring out your allotment, what dial to set your emotion to that aligns with your personality, so you show up as your authentic self, which ultimately allows you to play to your potential.
Yeah, and a lot of so one problem that I love to solve for myself or other people is drawing that line of where that is. So you mentioned like that caveman golf. I am all about in the moments around your shots, like you want to react like an athlete. I want to, again, see my target, go through my process and react to it and let my body do what it knows how to do versus let my mind get in the way of trying to force things to happen. So we get those chances 70, 80, 90, 100 times around. But those are quick moments. It doesn't take that long to swing a golf club. It shouldn't take more than 20, 30, 40 seconds to go through that routine. But we're out there for 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hours, unfortunately. So I guess what I'm talking about is managing all of that other time. So your reactions to shots, the time you are spending worrying about shots that haven't even occurred yet. There's a lot of in-between time in golf, and that's a big problem for people to solve, and why I said earlier that being on a golf course and being comfortable out there is very important, because you need to figure out different solutions to fill that time and hopefully spend it productively. Do you want to spend it cursing at yourself or worrying about playing partners or all of the other stuff that can happen on the golf course? Or do you want to strike up great conversations with your buddies or playing partners? Do you want to absorb the beauty of the golf course? Do you want to take some time to calm yourself down if you need to? Or kind of redirect your thoughts away from, too much fear or worrying about stuff that hasn't even occurred yet? So yeah, I think finding this blend of going into that reactionary, you can even call it robotic state around each shot. I would describe that as myself. I'm just pressing a button and going. But then with all the other times, then I have to figure out, well, man, I got 3+ hours of no action here. Yeah. How do I spend that time productively?
So well said. Some of those walks to an errant shot can be lonely, can be dark if you let them.
Yep.
No. So Absolutely. Get us out on a positive. I would love to hear, what is your highlight from this past year, 2024? What really stands out to you as a proud accomplishment or a highlight?
Yeah, I think this year was a little bit harder for me than the last 2 years. I had been dealing with, I have tennis elbow, tendinosis in my elbow. So I just don't think my ball striking was as sharp. And I had some, decent moments competitively, but, if I'm being honest, probably not as sharp as I felt the last couple of years. And that was a bit of a struggle for me, but I guess I'm proud of the way that I've still had. I got to take some great trips with people I've met through doing my content. I went to Scotland. I made some awesome trips in the US. So I look back on this year. It's the middle of September now. I'll hopefully have another month or 2 of playing golf, and I look back and say, man, I made a lot of new friends. I spent some time in awesome places with old friends. I put myself under pressure. I learned more about my game. I had some great moments. I had some kind of heartbreaking moments. Like I said, this past weekend, I didn't get what I wanted at my club championship, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, I think I guess I'm happy that I'm not, despite the fact that I'm trying to help others, like I'm still trying to be an open book to myself and figure this stuff out, because like I still haven't fully figured it out. But yeah, it's been super fun still. I'm still enjoying it and seeing what happens.
That's wonderful to hear, and sending my best recovery vibes your way. I know how painful that can be.
Yeah,
more annoying.
It's not debilitating. It's annoying. That's the right word. It's not preventing me from playing golf, so I'm grateful for that.
Very good. So let the listeners know, where can they go connect with you, learn from you, buy your phenomenal book?
I try and give away a lot of information for free. So we have a podcast called The Sweet Spot we've been doing for almost 4 years now. There's a ton of episodes on there with my philosophy and my podcast partner, Adam Young. I share a lot of stuff on X, Twitter, @Practical Golf, or I think @Practical.golf on Instagram. I've been posting more videos there. If you do like what I'm saying and you want to buy my book, it's The 4 Foundations of Golf on Amazon, and my newer book, which is about competition, that's The Foundations of Winning Golf. And you can check out my website, the4foundationsofgolf.com. I have my video course there. But yeah, I just try and I've got a lot of free stuff. I've got some stuff that doesn't cost much money to learn from me directly. I've started coaching some golfers directly. I work with Mackenzie Hughes on the PGA Tour for the last year That's been very fun. I've been working sparingly with other golfers directly as my time permits. So yeah, that's where everyone can find me.
And I'll have all of that in the show notes, so don't worry. Easy access below. Jon, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your insight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. I enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. Do both Jon and myself a favor. If you found value in this episode, which I absolutely know you did, take 30 seconds to share it with a fellow golfer so that he or she can also take their game to the next level. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next one.